Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Tuesday. I hope the week is going well, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. I hope you're not having too many withdrawal symptoms yet from the lack of Premier League action to look forward to over the next week or so. But we do have the international starting very, very soon, which can at least keep us entertained. Football will begin, and we will have some football to actually talk about. We'll speak about that a little bit later on the show in terms of who is in action and when. From an Arsenal point of view, no Thomas Partey. He is not going to be in action because he is withdrawn from the Ghana squad for their two games. He is going to be staying in London at Arsenal. So I'll give a little update on that as well. Got some questions and comments from you guys. We're going to have to talk about the huge news over here that Manchester City have sort of won their case over the APT rules against the Premier League, although both sides have been claiming victories in that legal dispute over the last 24 hours or so. So it is all a little bit confusing. But some of the rulings may have a little bit of an impact in terms of Arsenal, or definitely probably will have a bit of an impact in terms of Arsenal and how they move going forward. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on in the show as well. But first of all, I just wanted to share this. This has now arrived through the post, trying to get this so you can see what it says there. My silver play button from YouTube arrived this morning for passing 100,000 subscribers probably a month ago, whenever it was now. So yeah, just wanted to share that and say thank you very much for that, because this is all down to you. Let's face it, if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't be here. And I still can't believe it, honestly. When I started this channel a few years ago, thinking, oh, no one's going to watch this, are they? But let's give it a go anyway, to now having over 100,000 subscribers. And yeah, so thank you very much for all your support. I will continue to try and drive this channel forward. Still in a little bit of a holding pattern right now because of this house that I'm in. But once I do move and the process is beginning to start, this will be up on display in my new office stroke studio. I don't know what you want to call it. It's probably still a fair while off yet, but the wheels have been set in motion to actually move into a house that actually this family can fit in. And hopefully then I'll have much more of a nice office space where I can display that and other things, so you don't just have to look at this boring wall behind me for too much longer. So thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate it. Right, let's talk about Thomas Partey, shall we? He is staying in London. It was revealed last night, or announced last night, by the Ghana Football Association that he was not going to be part of their squad. This was what it said in the statement. It says Thomas is unable to join the Black Stars due to medical issues he is currently experiencing, and his club has scheduled him for further tests in the coming days. So Thomas Partey staying in London, not going to link up with Ghana over the next 2 weeks. Now, my information on this, very similar to Kai Havertz, is that it's nothing to be concerned about. It is purely precautionary. As far as I'm aware, it's not an injury. It's actually that Thomas Partey is ill. It hasn't been feeling great. And so it has been decided it would be best for him not to travel over and play the couple of games, and just for him to rest up, stay in London, and yeah, just get himself fully up to speed. Which, look, I know probably from a Ghana point of view, if you're a Ghana fan, you're thinking we need Thomas Partey to play, of course. But from an Arsenal point of view, I think you have to look at it, think it's a very good decision. Thomas Partey has started every single game this season, including the last two for Ghana during the international break. The only game he hasn't started was the Carabao Cup game. He's played loads of minutes for Arsenal. I think we've all been watching it a little bit through sort of hands behind a face, just waiting for that first muscular injury of the season to happen. It hasn't happened yet. He's looking fit. He's looking strong. It does feel like the perfect time. Again, this is purely selfish, I know, from an Arsenal point of view. And if you're Ghanaian and you want to see Thomas Partey playing for Ghana, you have a very different view of it, I'm sure. But certainly from an Arsenal point of view, it feels like a very good time just for him to have a break. I almost kind of feel like from a Ghana point of view, it is as well, because, you know, if you push Thomas too far, we've seen that an injury could happen. It tends to be just around the corner. And should that happen now, then he won't be available for Ghana in the future, because he might have another season like last season. So it kind of feels good for all parties, just for him to have this 2 weeks to get himself back up to speed, get over this illness that he's got, and be fully fit and ready to go when the Premier League kicks off again in the game against Bournemouth. So that's my information on it. I personally think it's a pretty good decision from all parties. And, you know, he has played an awful lot of minutes, more minutes than I think we were all expecting so far this season. and he's beginning to look strong, beginning to look really fit. I think his last couple of performances have been very, very good. I thought he was great against PSG. Who was it playing against? Southampton. Sorry, totally lost my mind there. Who Arsenal played at the weekend. I thought he looked good against Southampton, playing in that makeshift right back role as well. He just looks fit. The worst thing that could happen now was for something to happen to Thomas, to pull, that thigh to go again, or do his hamstring, do his calf, and suddenly be out for 5 weeks again, and then come back and be scrambling around for fitness and form. It just feels like the perfect time to give him a bit of a break. I know everyone's been saying, the dark arts, Mikel's been doing it again. First you pull Kai Havertz out, and now you pull Thomas Partey out. Maybe that is what's going on. But as far as I'm aware, and has been told, Thomas Partey's ill. And the decision has been taken that it's best for everyone that he stay in London, get himself back to 100%, and then be ready to go when the Premier League starts again. And so that's the latest on Thomas Partey. Right, let's try and talk about this a little bit. It is very confusing. It is a story that, depending on what side of the fence you're sitting on, you'll be getting information and reading different things, because it is very much split down the middle. So Cormac here has got in touch and says, what are your thoughts on the ruling in City's case against APT rules laid out by the Premier League? Seems like City went straight to the media again to try and set the narrative like they did after the Arsenal game. A lot of media saying it's a big win for City. However, the Premier League seemed very happy with the result as well. If both sides are adamant that they won, then who really did? Seems to me like the tribunal determined that APT are unlawful in their current state, so the PL has to amend the rules. The Times even suggests this could be bad for some news, adding that loans which the Cronkies gave to Arsenal during COVID pandemic are now potentially in breach of these rules, even though the rules were relaxed then. In my 25 years watching the Premier League, I've never seen a club as good at spinning stories as Manchester City. So that's from Cormac from Dublin. So yes, I mean, the tribunal ruling came out yesterday that in City's case against the Premier League and against the APT rules, which they believe are unfair, that a couple of the rules were deemed unlawful by the tribunal and need to be changed. Now, City have obviously jumped on that and believe it's a big, big success, and they've pushed that out to various media who cover the club. But then the Premier League are also pushing out from their point of view that, yes, they accept that a couple of these rulings have gone against them, but largely they believe that they've won, that the tribunal ruled in their favour, and they believe they can very quickly amend these APT rules to fit into what has been said by the tribunal, and things can move on. So they're claiming a win as well. So it's all pretty complicated, it has to be said. Now, the key thing here, potentially, for an Arsenal point of view, is that in the ruling for City's legal ruling, is that it was declared that so-called shareholder loans are unlawful, or it's unlawful for those to be excluded from the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules, PSR, obviously. And that is something that Man City have been arguing. And those shareholder loans, basically interest-free loans, are something that Arsenal have benefited massively from over the last few years, certainly through COVID and things like that. Arsenal owe the Cronkies basically 259 million in these soft loans or shareholder loans, whatever you call it. Everton, I think, are at 450 million, Brighton 373. And Man City say that that's unfair. If they're being stopped from having various sponsorship deals that are linked to their owners, why are shareholders allowed to loan the club interest-free loans? Surely the clubs should have to pay interest on them. That's what they're arguing. So Arsenal should really, in their profit and sustainability accounts, should be putting up about £40 million worth of interest extra than they are due. And that's what they're arguing. The thing is, if these are going to be changed, and it looks like they're going to have to be changed, these rules in terms of shareholder loans, they're not going to be backdated. So that Arsenal aren't going to be suddenly faced with a £40 million hit, or they're not going to be faced with points deductions because of the shareholder loans that they've taken out during that time, which have now been ruled as unlawful. So it's not going to be backdated. It's going to be those new rules are going to start from when the new APT rules are brought in. I'm hoping I'm making some sort of sense. It is very, very complicated, of course. So basically, Arsenal aren't going to be hit, is what I'm trying to say. They're not going to suddenly have to find money that they supposedly owe from the last 3 or 4 years, and they're not going to be hit with any points deductions or anything like that. They're just going to have to factor it in going forward. They can't take these loans anymore, or if they do, they're going to have to pay the proper amount of interest on them. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. It can be, looks like you could potentially get around to changing these shareholder loans into equity, things like that, but we'll have to wait and see on it. I mean, the whole thing's just a mess. You know, I hate sitting here talking about it, because I don't really understand it. It just goes totally over my head. And just I just want to be talking about football. And all it seems now, it's all about court cases, legal disputes, so and so clubs. I mean, it does feel like a bit of a civil war going on in the Premier League, because you've got City on one hand, you've got a few clubs supporting City, clubs you can imagine, you know, Newcastle for one, who will of course benefit from the change in these rules in terms of sponsorship deals from state owners, things like that. I think Chelsea are back in City as well, Nottingham Forest. And on the other hand, you've got like Arsenal, who were giving evidence for the Premier League in this ruling, Manchester United, Liverpool, Brighton, all those sort of clubs. There's just a huge divide in the Premier League, and you just don't see how that's going to change anymore. And it just feels like such a mess, and everything's ending in legal disputes and court challenges and points deductions and all that sort of stuff. It's just not what you want to be talking about, is it? You just want to sit here and talk about football. So it's not much fun. So in answer to your call back there, what are my thoughts on it? My thoughts on it just bores me, to be honest, and I wish I wasn't talking about it. But in terms of from an Arsenal point of view, my thoughts are that obviously if these new rules are put in place, which looks like they're going to have to be when they are ever voted through by the Premier League, it sounded like they wanted to rush them through very quickly, but Man City are adamant that can't be the case. They believe that this ruling means that all of the APT rules are void, which is something the Premier League dispute. So again, it's still rumbling on. City have already threatened more legal action this morning. Apparently, it's been reported by the Times in a letter sent around to other clubs, saying that if APT rules, new ones are rushed through very quickly, then more legal action is going to come. And it's just a mess. It really is. It's just not fun to listen to. It's not fun to read about. And yeah, I just wish it wasn't happening, but it is. From an Arsenal point of view, yeah, they might have to change going forward in terms of how they operate, certainly when it comes to shareholder loans from the Cronkies. Right, in terms of internationals, like I said, it starts on Thursday. This is the Arsenal players who are in action, although it does have Ghana listed here, so those don't need to be taken into account now because Thomas Partey isn't there. But it all starts off on Thursday. So you've got Israel v France, so Saliba playing in that. Then you got the Calafiori and Trossard derby when Italy take on Belgium. No Jorginho for Italy during this link up. And then you've got England playing Greece as well on Thursday night. So Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice in action. Those are the first group. Then you've got the Brazil in action on Friday. Gabriel Martinelli called up for that one, as well as Gabriel, of course. So those two are going to be in action. They're the last to play as well on the early hours of next Wednesday morning. So you think they'll fly home, probably get back to Colney at some point on the Thursday. Arsenal will be travelling to Bournemouth on the Friday. So not much of a turnaround at all from Martinelli and Gabriel there. So that's a little bit of a worry perhaps. But hopefully, fingers crossed, everyone can just come through this period unscathed. It's definitely nice the fact that Thomas Partey and Kai Havertz aren't in action. It has to be said, but hopefully everyone else can get through this unscathed. As Mikel Arteta said before the international break, he's going to be praying that that is the case. Of course, Mourinho called up by Spain. Did that really need to happen after such little game time since his move for Arsenal? Surely that would be a little bit more sensible just to let him stay at Arsenal for these 2 weeks rather than immediately calling him back into the Spain squad after that injury. But who am I to pick the Spain squad indeed? So that's the latest when it comes to internationals, all kicking off on Thursday. Had a few questions about Kieran Tierney, actually, so I just wanted to bring him up. Obviously, he was pictured training a while back. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that training. Saw him on the bench on Saturday, sitting on the bench. He was there on Tuesday night against PSG as well, not on the subs bench, obviously, sits just behind it. And he was there on Saturday as well, continuing to try and work his way back to full fitness. Lots are asking now, do you think Kieran Tierney will play when he comes back? I mean, look, he's been included in the squad, so it's not like he's been frozen out or anything like that. I still think the most likely option with Kieran Tierney is obviously he will go in January. If he can get himself fit, the aim will be to get him a move in January, probably on loan, because you can't imagine someone will sign him on a permanent basis in January. So it'll probably be on loan through to the end of the season. And the hope would be that he can stay fit in that loan spell, do well, and then probably get a permanent move out of the club in the summer. So all the questions I am getting, do you think Kieran can be a part of this squad? Do you think he's going to play? I mean, there's a chance if he gets himself fit, maybe he could play in the Carabao Cup if Arsenal is still in it in the build-up to the January transfer window. But I don't really see him having too much of an impact. Other than that, I have to say, I think the focus right now would just be on him getting fit, getting himself to a position where once a January transfer window does roll around, he can get himself a move, something he couldn't do in the summer, obviously, because he was injured with that hamstring problem he picked up playing for Scotland. and then, yeah, get himself a loan move, try and impress, and then a permanent move in the summer. Moving on to some of your questions and comments now. Matt here says, if there's any criticism of Arteta last season, it's he sometimes overplayed players. When the team goes 3-1 up with 20 minutes to go, Saka needs to be taken off immediately. Same with the likes of Rice, Partey and Havertz. Give the youngsters some minutes at the end of the games. I think Arteta has improved on that this season. I think, anyway, especially when you look at Bukayo Saka. I think he's come off in a fair few games this season now, which you didn't really get to see before. So I think Arteta has shown signs, and I agree, this is definitely a criticism I could have levelled at him last season. There was definitely opportunities to take players off earlier than he did. But I think the signs are a little bit more positive in that regard. I think he obviously trusts some players he's got on the bench a little bit more than maybe he did before. And I think that's only going to improve as well when some of the other injured players continue to come back. You know, once you see Timber White back involved as well at the moment, I think that's only going to improve as well. So I understand what you're saying. I think there definitely was a criticism, a fair one at him last season, but I think the signs so far are a little bit better in that regard, that he is moving, he is managing load better when it comes to the final half an hour of games. Here's one from Mitten, I think, says, I don't get the comparison between out-of-form Martinelli and Jesus. With Martinelli, he always tries to deliver his very best with his effort on the pitch, and I always felt it's just a matter of time. On the other hand, Jesus tries to add a bit of fancy elements into everything he does, even when simple passing options are available, ultimately leading to nothing. Yeah, maybe, but I still think what we're looking at right now is Jesus trying to do fancy elements that lead to nothing. I'm not sure it is a case of that. I just think it's a case of a really out-of-confidence player who is just, because he has zero confidence and he's not doing things off the cuff, that he is just taking too many touches on the ball, and that makes it look like he's trying to do fancy things, but I'm not sure he is. I just think he's taking too many touches and getting overcomplicating things. I think if he was really confident, he'd be moving the ball an awful lot quicker than he is, and we wouldn't look at it and think he's trying to do fancy things. And my comparison was, when I was talking about Martinelli and Jesus, it was just how quickly things can change. Because again, there was a very strong criticism of Martinelli not too long ago that he was taking too many touches on the ball and overthinking things and overcomplicating things. It was exactly what people were saying. And he wasn't getting his head up quickly enough and being able to lay the ball off to someone who was in a better position to score. And it was always just head down and then just try and get a shot away or something like that. So I think there is a fair comparison there. And I do think Jesus is still trying as hard as he possibly can, but he's just clearly way off form and really, really struggling with confidence at the moment. But my comparison was just that it can turn around very quickly. It doesn't take much for things to turn around quickly. And so I still maintain that. But thanks very much for pointing that out there. And Ollie here says, Havertz is slowly becoming that moments player we have all been after, taking the game by the scruff of its neck and refusing to accept defeat. That goal against Southampton proves it even more. If he keeps up with finishing, he can easily become player of the season. I thought that line was interesting because it got me thinking about who's been Arsenal's player of the season so far. I think it probably has been Kai Havertz. Saka's obviously done great things. He's got loads of assists. David Raya has got a really strong argument to be up there as well. But I think I would be probably rating Kai Havertz at the top right now in terms of early season power rankings, that sort of thing. Me and James Benge are going to be sitting down tomorrow for Inside Arsenal Extra Time, and I think the plan is we're going to maybe go through our early season Arsenal player ratings. It'll be interesting to see if we both agree on who has been the star of the show or not. So this topic is certainly going to come up in that conversation. I would probably agree on it. I think if he continues on this form, he definitely easily could become Arsenal's player of the season, because he started the season in such impressive fashion. And for me, I think probably only David Raya is right up there with him in terms of Arsenal performances so far. Maybe Gabriel as well, who's been very, very impressive for me. So thank you very much, Ollie, for that comment. And that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time, as always. And again, thank you very much for helping me reach this milestone. Hopefully, I think the next one's 1 million. So it's probably going to take quite a long time for me to end up to be able to give this one its older brother. But who knows? You never know, do you? Maybe I'll be 70 years old and still doing this, and it could get to that mark. We will see. Anyway, so thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everyone. Appreciate your time as always. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Have a good one. Bye-bye.